Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where over the weekend, Hollywood pushed Thanksgiving leftovers hard, and they used the age-old trick of not making anything new for moviegoers to consume. You've heard it in your kitchen, and now you heard it from Hollywood. We gotta get rid of the stuff in the fridge first. But while you do have to eat, you don't have to go to the movies. So a lot of people opted simply not to go. But still, the quiet weekend did offer up some interesting headlines. The first being that animation rules. Because as families headed to the mall for Christmas shopping and more, it seems they also stopped by the multiplex. It's not just the top movie, but the top two movies of the weekend were both animated. How often does that happen? Pretty much never. But making it even more extraordinary, animation is really on fire as a genre. It's like horror, although not this weekend. We'll talk about that. But anyway, what was even more extraordinary was that the month-old Grinch leapfrogged over Creed 2 in just his second weekend. We'll talk about Creed 2. Don't feel too bad for Creed 2. Because also, the Grinch, as we all suspected, was set for a boost once the Christmas season became legit. It opened ridiculously early, and we wondered if it would be able to hold on to its screens as more and more movies came out. But two things happened. One, the Grinch continued to be a solid performer throughout, from week to week. But then also, secondly, a lot of its competition fizzled. So the Grinch remained profitable, lucrative for theaters to keep on their screens, whereas other movies did not. This is an important distinction. It's going to come into play with our Crazy Rich Asians discussion in China. Because if a movie isn't doing well on screens, the theater, not the distributor, that's the studio, but the exhibitor has the right to drop it from the screen. Fascinating. So the Grinch was able to hold on to those screens. And also, while it might seem that the Grinch's overseas stocking is a bit light, let's not forget that he still has a number of countries to visit outside the U.S. In fact, he still has some of the biggest ones yet to go, still on his Christmas list. Now, while The Grinch, no matter what happens, isn't going to be one of Illumination's biggest hits, it's still a respectable hit for the animation brand. But it's certainly a major hit for Universal as a company, and not just Universal, but Comcast, NBC Universal, because they can exploit it beyond the silver screen. As I said in my review, I suspect that's the whole reason they even made this thing, because now it's a holiday movie that will be available to stream annually when people are looking for stuff. It's a new holiday movie, right? It'll be able to be it's something that they can play on their networks annually. And also they can put it in their theme parks and whatever else ways that, again, the Comcast NBC Universal team can think up. Sometimes marketing teams are more creative than the ones that actually tell the story. Although sometimes not. By the way, side note, Spider-Verse. We'll talk about Spider-Verse in just a moment. But they're doing a fantastic job getting that brand out there with brand deals to really up its profile. And they did a good job. Sony. Universal did a good job getting the Grinch out there as well. But although somewhat scary for Spider-Verse, which we're all hoping will do very well, again, Grinch is just a respectable hit. Anyway, quickly, before we get to Spider-Verse, as for Ralph, he's still the number one guy, but he's smacking between Frozen and Coco's second weekends. So I think he's so far not something to get too excited about. Like, I wouldn't make a Ralph 3. I'd send Rich Moore back over to Zootopia. Ralph 2 being, of course, his reward for that billion-dollar picture. But the real question is what kind of damage Into the Spider-Verse will do December 14th. Now, let's not even really try and talk about this because I don't want to jinx Spider-Verse, but there's always the danger that people might be animated out. Oh noes! But the buzz is building for Into the Spider-Verse, so it looks like Ralph and the Grinch have just one more weekend to grab as much cash as they can before the spiders swing into the multiplex and web up all the cash. Hopefully, that's what I'm hoping happens. Please, buy your tickets, go see it. I really want Into the Spider-Verse to do well, as it deserves to. The buzz is building, but you never know until you know. Then as for Creed 2, the Rocky flick is pacing slightly ahead of its predecessor, but it had a slightly bigger second weekend drop. Still, it should out-earn the last Creed. It's a solid, this is also a solid performer. And it too has a number of rounds to go in the ring overseas, including Russia, where maybe it'll do well, even though their guy loses and they don't make Russia look very good. Now, this is where things get interesting, because Florian Montanu is German-Romanian, and while he's very convincing in the movie, in today's global movie market, maybe Stallone should have cast a legit Russian in the role, and given the Drago storyline a bit more attention and respect. You got to think about the box office now when you're writing the movie. Now, on that note, overseas drama is our next headline, and it was crazy how much of a bomb Crazy Rich Asians was in China. Such a flop that it was being pulled from screens throughout its opening weekend. We just talked about The Grinch, which was posting solid numbers, but Crazy Rich Asians was doing so poorly in China, the exhibitors were like, I could make more money off of this literal theater, this screen, if I played a different movie on the screen. So Venom continues to be a huge hit there. Second biggest hit of the year after Infinity War. So they're like, I'm not going to put Crazy Rich Asians on the screen. If I throw up another showing of Venom, I can make more money. So it was losing screens throughout the weekend. That's how poorly it was doing. Now, Warner Brothers is planning to smarten up their own business strategy for the sequel, China Rich Girlfriend. It has China in the title. By maybe they're discussing this, making the film a co-production with China. And I don't know, maybe toning down the insulting stereotypes as well. That's what I would do if I wanted it to do better in China. Now, granted, Crazy Rich Asians is still a huge hit and an important moment in Hollywood history. But China's stamp of approval would have been a nice and important feather in its cap. But they can maybe do it in round two. And in fact, China has become such an important movie market that Aquaman is set to open in that country first, before anywhere else in the world, this coming weekend, December 7th. So next weekend, even though nothing's really happening here at the box office, we'll certainly be talking about how Aquaman debuts. I'm sure that Warner Brothers did that because they want a big number to encourage everybody else to go, and we'll see if they get that big box office headline that they're, again, so clearly looking for. Then the next headline of this weekend is Indie Sensation. Because in a year where the big studio movies are getting all the awards attention, only one indie has been able to represent the group and stand its ground, and that's The Favorite. Usually it's all about the indies. You're like, why do they want to nominate all these movies that nobody's seen? Well, this year it's all about the movies that everyone has seen. Although The Favorite, people are seeing this one as well. It added just another 30 theaters this weekend, and it continues to impress with its per theater average as Fox Searchlight's release strategy is textbook perfect. They're expanding at just the right rate. And it'll certainly add additional theaters this weekend, hoping to capitalize on those Golden Globe nominations announced Thursday morning, where The Favorite is expected to be a favorite. Then as for the overall top 10, the only new wide release this weekend, The Possession of Hannah Grace, was just further evidence that horror movies have become a prestige genre where name talent in front of and especially behind the camera is crucial. And the biggest drop for this weekend was The Crimes of Grindelwald, which at this rate won't even make it to 200 million domestic. Oh, it's so bad. I don't know. I mean, you would think that, I think that Disney has heard the huge, waves from Solo's box office, or felt them. And I can't imagine that Warner Brothers isn't feeling this. Because while the trades are quick to point to its strong overseas or stronger overseas numbers, it has hit all the big countries already, unlike Creed 2 and The Grinch. So therefore, Crimes of Grindelwald is pretty much guaranteed at this point to be the lowest grossing Wizarding World movie to date by far. It's not even close. Then the best hold this weekend was Green Book, but it's right at number 10. So the only thing that's going to keep it in the top 10, especially as The Favorite expands, is if it too gets some big Golden Globe nominations on Thursday. I'm talking like a Best Picture and some acting noms. That would be really, really important for it. But Rami Malek is considered a shoo-in for a nomination, and with Bohemian Rhapsody up to a stunning 540 million worldwide so far, he'll also be helping with ratings for the telecast as well. That could also help him get that Oscar nomination. But the Golden Globes are particularly interested in making sure people tune in. And don't worry, A Star is Born fans, it's the front runner for sure. We'll talk about it on Thursday morning when the nominations are announced. Now, speaking of the nominations, that's what this coming weekend is all about, with Hollywood not releasing, again, anything else, with the hopes that the Golden Globe nominations give a boost to some of the smaller movies right before that holiday onslaught. So, do you plan to double back and catch any of these smaller films, especially if they do get Golden Globe nominations? That's this week's Movie Math. As always, thanks for going over the box office with me. Share your thoughts down below. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.